Okay, so we were talking about Walter Benjamin's essay, The Task of the Translator. Uh, if you have questions, if you want me to stop at any point, you can write it in the chat. I can see the chat. So I'll stop and answer the questions, or I'll answer all the questions in the chat. Okay, I'll respond to those doubts. I'll respond to all the doubts. I'll clear all the doubts. But to begin with, let me proceed with the lecture and finish with the things that I need to say. There are a couple of points left, important points left. Let me make those clear, and then we'll start with the doubts. So we are talking about Walter Benjamin changing the focus of translation as a procedure, as a process. Walter Benjamin is saying that translation done just for the sake of the target reader, with the reader in mind, with the readership in mind, is not a good translation, is a bad translation. Translations done with the source text, just the message contained in the source text in mind, is also not a good translation, is a bad translation. So what should ideally, according to Benjamin, be the task of the translator? According to Benjamin, the task of the translator is primarily to be a high priest, perform the role of a high priest in the marriage of two languages. So Benjamin is shifting the focus. Benjamin believes translation is the process through which two different languages, two different language systems, they come in contact with each other. And the translator is the conduit, translator is the high priest in this particular marriage. The translator actually brings in himself or herself, within himself or herself, brings these two languages together and marries these two languages. In the process, the translator gives birth to a language which Benjamin believes is a purer language, because it is a language which is more whole and more complete. Remember I said Benjamin believes all the different languages are broken fragments. None of them are whole, none of them are complete in itself. So when two languages are coming together in the process of translation, a new language is being born, which Benjamin believes is not the pure language. Please understand that the pure language is just an idea. The pure language is a concept. The pure language is not achievable, but a language which is a step closer to the pure language. So that was where we finished in my last class. I'm taking off from there. We will be talking about the implications of this particular theoretical assumption that Benjamin does. That translation is a process which is primarily concerned with bringing together two languages. The implications are these. First, number one, remember in the class, we have talked very often about the domesticating versus foreignizing debate in translation. There is a group of people who argues for translations that should be domesticated in nature. What does that mean? To translations that domesticated? Translations that cater to the target readership, to the target culture, translations that cater to the target language. So translations that seem that it has been written originally in the target language. Translations that are so domesticated, so well adjusted to the target culture that they seem like they have been written in the target culture itself. So that's the domestication process. I'm translating a text from English. There are many cultural aspects of the English society which does not fit in with the Bengali society. As a translator, when I'm translating it, I am either adapting or changing those aspects of the original text, of the original culture, of the original language. I am adapting them or transforming them or changing them in a manner so that they fit in perfectly with the target culture, target language, and target readership. That is domestication. What is foreignizing? Foreignizing is just the opposite pole of this debate. Foreignizing is keeping as much of the foreign element that is there in the source text alive in the translation. So foreign aspects of the language, foreign aspects of the culture, foreign aspects of the source text should be kept alive in the target text, which means that the target text would often read very uneasy, would often, because the language there will not be the common, fluid, normal language that is spoken in the target culture. The language there would often sound artificial, often sound unnatural, often sound stilted, because the translator has made a choice not to adapt, transform the original foreign elements in the source text and make them suitable for the target text, for the target readership, target culture. So that's a foreignizing and domesticating debate in as far as translation and translators are concerned. So some translators prefer the foreignizing process, keeping the foreign elements alive. Some translators prefer to domesticate the translation. So the translated text looks like as if it has been written in the target culture itself. For instance, I can give you just a simple example. Think about if you are translating an English story. I'm giving you the most basic examples. Think about if you are translating an English story into Bengali. Will you also change the names of the characters in the English story? Because those names of the characters are not names of people usually in Bengal. So let's say the name of the hero is Peter in the original English story. Will you, when you're translating it into Bengali, change that name Peter into Partho? If you are doing that, you are domesticating the original text, and you are making that text suitable for a target readership where the target readership would not even understand that the original has been written in another language. The target readership will feel that this text has been probably written in Bengali originally. Giving you another example of cultural adaptation. Let's say in the original story, someone has died and the funeral is being held, and the heroine in the story is wearing black, and the funeral process is happening as the funeral process happened in England. When you are translating that story, will you or won't you change the heroine's black dress to white? Because in case of death in Bengal, people wear white for mourning and not black. Would you change that? If you do that, you are domesticating the foreign elements of the text. I gave you examples, very basic examples of foreign elements, but please understand that what is the most foreign thing in the source text? The most foreign thing in the source text is not the name of the characters, not the cultural markers that are there in the source text, but the language itself. It is a foreign language to begin with. That is what is the most foreign element in the source text. So whether while translating, the question arises, whether while translating you would change those foreign elements, the foreign language, and adapt it, transform it, convert it to a language that is more suitable and fluid for the target readership. This is where Benjamin comes in heavily. This is where Benjamin's theory of the marriage of two languages, translation as a process where two languages are married to each other, become exceptionally important. Benjamin believes that all the foreign elements in the language, in the original source text, should be kept alive in the target text, in the translated text. Only by that, the two languages are truly coming together. If you delete the foreignness of the language, if you try and delete the foreignness of the language in the source text completely, you are, as a translator, doing disservice to your actual purpose as a translator. The task of the translator, according to Walter Benjamin, is to bring in as much foreign element of the original language into the target language. Benjamin is not concerned with the target reader. Benjamin is not concerned with the message content in the source text. Benjamin is not concerned with the target culture. Benjamin's focus is one and one only. Benjamin believes that the translation as a process opens a gateway. It's like opening a door, opens a portal between two languages when two languages can interact with each other. And this interaction will only be successful when all that is there in the foreign language is allowed entry, as much as possible, allowed entry in the target language. If the foreign language is not allowed entry, there is no marriage that is happening between two languages. The two languages remain separate. And since the two languages remain separate, no purer language is born through the process of translation. No language of a higher realm, that's the higher realm. That's the phrase that Benjamin uses, a higher realm of language. No higher realm of language is achieved through the process of translation. And the task of the translator remains unfinished, remains incomplete. In other words, the translator fails. Towards the end of the essay, Walter Benjamin quotes, there is a very important quotation, since I cannot mark out portions in this process of online teaching. You will have to look for the quote yourself. Towards the end of the essay, Walter Benjamin quotes one of his favorite German philosophers, Rudolf Panwitz. He quotes Rudolf Panwitz, and Rudolf Panwitz is complaining in this particular quotation about the problems in German translations, in German translators. This is what Rudolf Panwitz is saying in the quotation. Rudolf Panwitz is saying that the problem with German translators nowadays is that they want to Germanize Sanskrit, Germanize Latin, Germanize Hindi, Germanize English while they are translating. So these translators are translating from Sanskrit, English, Hindi, Latin. While they're translating, they're trying to Germanize Latin. They're trying to make Latin the original Latin text, sound like something originally written in German. They're like trying to make the original Sanskrit text sound like something that is originally written in German. This, Rudolf Panwitz believes, is a problem that the German translators try to Germanize Sanskrit, Germanize Latin, Germanize Hindi, Germanize English, instead of what they should be doing. What should they be doing? Actually, they should, instead of doing this, try to Sanskritize German, Latinize German, Indicize in Hindi's adjective form is indicize German and make Anglicized German. So in order to fulfill their task as a translator, they should open up German, which is the target language here, open up German as a language, open up the door, open up the portal, open up German as a language, and allow influences from Sanskrit language, from the foreign languages, from Sanskrit, Latin, Hindi, and English come into German. What does this mean? What does this mean that, was somebody saying something? Okay, I'm continuing. What does this mean? That instead of Germanizing Sanskrit, they should be Sanskritizing German. It means that they should, the translator who is translating from Sanskrit to German, should open up his or her own language, that is German, the target language, and allow as much linguistic influence as possible to come in from Sanskrit, and thereby he would end up enriching German as a language. So instead of Germanizing Sanskrit, he should be Sanskritizing German, allow the influences, linguistic influence, the focus is on language, linguistic influence of Sanskrit to come in, enter German as much as possible, so that German as a language becomes richer. German as a language, in the translated text, moves one step closer to that notion, to that idea of pure language, one language that is whole, one language that is complete. So this is one of the very important and basic implications of the change in focus that Walter Benjamin is trying to bring in. Walter Benjamin is trying to change the game of translation by saying that the translator should act as the high priest in the marriage of two languages, and the target language should open itself up to foreign influences and thereby enrich itself. The translator becomes the conduit through which a purer language is produced, a purer language is born. Okay, I'll take a pause. You can write in chat or unmute yourself and say, is that understandable? Any problem at this point?
No.
Are you following it? You are following it, right? Okay, okay. Okay, fine, good. Good. So I'll take up another aspect. As I said, the essay is written in such a manner that it is rich with ideas. Benjamin had, as I started, Benjamin had quite a few counterintuitive ideas about literary texts, literature, translation, language, and everything. Essay is a rich source of these ideas. So this is another. I'll make a list now. We have already been, we are already acquainted with two of these. So I'll just mention them and then continue with this. Walter Benjamin, in the essay, talks about bad translations a lot. So we have already explained what Benjamin believes to be a good translation. A good translation and a good translator is a translator that focuses on the language and allows the foreign text, foreign language to influence the target language as much as possible, opening up the target language and making the target language richer. But Benjamin also talks about bad translations a lot. What results in bad translation? There's a list that he does almost of what results in bad translations. I'll go through that list. This is important for your exams also. So Benjamin says, number one, you already know this, that translators who focus unduly, according to him, on the target reader, on the readership, and translates only for the reader, only for the benefit of the reader, are bad translators. They have not understood what their job really is. Because the original has not been written with a reader in mind, why should the translation be done with a reader in mind? That is his general argument, number one. Number two, Benjamin says that translators who merely focus on the message content, not the language, message content in the original, and translates the message, just the message, are bad translators, because he believes that the message content, the content of a literary work, the content of a work of art, is its most inconsequential aspect. Benjamin believes work of art is not about what is said. A literary work is not about what is said, but how it is said. So there's a difference between what is said and how it is said. Translators who merely focus on what is said rather than how it is said are bad translators. Please understand, translators who focus on how it is said are, by definition, focusing on the language. Translators who are, instead of focusing on what is said, focusing on how it is being said, are naturally focusing on language. So translators who focus on how it is being said are good translators. Then Benjamin, this is where we are going into new areas. Then Benjamin starts talking about something called the life and afterlife of a work of art. When he's talking about, in this particular essay, when he's talking about work of art, he means literary works. He means a poem or a play or a novel. That is what he means by work of art. He starts talking about the life and afterlife of a work of art. And he also talks about how a translation is related to the original. There are two ideas here that we need to understand, two separate ideas. Number one, Walter Benjamin believes or sees it like that, that a work of art is a living thing. A literary work, a poem, a play, they are living things. Why are they living things? What is the characteristic feature of a living thing that is shared by a work of art and a living thing? A work of art is a living thing because it grows and changes with time. What does it mean it grows and changes with time? It means that the way people read it, the way people understand it, its reception grows and changes with time. Please understand, when Shakespeare wrote his plays, it was read, received, and seen in a certain manner. Shakespeare's plays grew on us. It developed, its reception changed from age to age. Nowadays, for instance, just give you an example for you to understand. Nowadays, you guys read Shakespeare's The Tempest from a post-colonial perspective. You see Caliban as this oppressed, colonized, as this oppressed and exploited colonized. Originally, when William Shakespeare wrote the play, the original reception was not that, right? So in these 400 years since Shakespeare wrote The Tempest, Shakespeare's reception has changed. Our perception of The Tempest as a work of art has changed. It has changed, developed, and grown, just like living things change, develop, and grow, right? Our rock does not change or develop or grow. Living things change, develop, and grow. Similarly, a work of art changes, develops, and grows. That is why literary works, a poem, a short story, a novel, anything, they are living things, right? They change, develop, and grow. And after a point of time, their reception, our understanding of this work, they stabilize. So when the work of art first comes into the scene, when it is just written in the contemporary times, it is not completely understood. It is not completely appreciated. It is not completely received. It is still growing and changing. Its readership is still growing and changing. Its reception is still growing and changing. After many, many years of its coming into the scene, its reception stabilizes. It comes to a standstill. This Benjamin calls the work of art's afterlife, quote unquote, afterlife. He also calls it the work of art's age of fame. So the work of art has been born, a literary work, say a play has been born. It has grown, it has changed, it has developed, and finally it has reached what Benjamin calls an age of fame, right? When its reception has more or less stabilized, when it has stopped growing, when it has stopped changing. Fine? Benjamin believes, this is crucial, this is why I said all those things. Benjamin believes that translations done before a work of art has reached its age of fame are bad translations. This is the first idea. So basically, he is arguing that only classics, quote unquote classics, work of art, a literary work that has already achieved the marker of a classic, being a classic, are worthy of translation. He's saying that not all work of art are worthy of translation. Works of art are worthy of translation. Only classics, only works of art that have reached their age of fame in their afterlife are worthy of translation. Other translators focusing on works of art that haven't reached the age of fame are pursuing bad translations. There is another idea in this same context. Second idea. Walter Benjamin believes that a work of art, a literary work, a play, a drama, dictates its own translation. So as I said, not all work of art are translation worthy, not work of art are worthy of translation. The way Benjamin puts it is that not all work of art find their translators. Only a few does. So the work of art that finds its translator, it's actually dictating its own translation. The translation becomes an extension, that is the word, not a byproduct, but an extension of the work of art itself in its age of fame. And please understand, the translation, according to Benjamin, is by no means in any way lesser, lower, or less important than the original work of art. Benjamin sees translation as one of the highest forms of art. In fact, he believes that a work of art, by being translated, please understand this phrase, a work of art, by being translated, is raised. The translation is an elevation. A work of art, by being translated, is raised to a higher, purer realm of language. Once again, we come back to language. A work of art, by being translated by a translator, is raised, elevated in stature to a higher, purer realm of language. This is very important. Okay, so that is done. I'll finish with a question. Sorry, sir, I couldn't understand. Somebody said. I'll explain. I'll finish with a question and then I'll take questions from you. Let's say I'll finish with this question. This is usually what I do in class. In a live class, it is easier. It will be slightly more complicated. Let's say you have a novel. You have a novel by Leo Tolstoy, the Russian novelist. In your native tongue, in your first language, Bengali, Assamese, whatever, you are reading that novel and you feel so comfortable that you feel like Tolstoy has written this novel originally in Assamese or originally in Bengali. The novel reads so fluent, so fluid, so comfortable that it feels like it has been originally written in Assamese, originally written in Bengali. Is that, according to Walter Benjamin, a good translation of Leo Tolstoy's novel? This is my question. You can answer in chat or whatever. I just want to see your answers and then. Thank you. Thank you. So if you have, yeah, perfect. No, it is a bad translation of the novel according to Benjamin, because the translator, what he has done, that he has not allowed the foreign elements into Assamese, the foreign elements into, maybe the translator has translated it from original Russian. Russian is a foreign language. It says things differently. It expresses things differently. So the translator, in his or her ignorance, according to Walter Benjamin's theory, has not allowed those foreign elements into his or her translation, has tried as much as possible to make the translation sound domesticated. That is a marker for Benjamin of a bad translation. Just let me check the texts and I'll answer the questions. If you have any questions, please write them down in the text. I'll answer all the questions one by one. Chat. Where is the chat? Chat with everyone. Right. So would you please repeat the second point? Says Shayon, I think. And P, who is P? Sorry, sir, I could not understand, says P. Well, okay, whoever P, no problem at this point.
Me,
Whoever
Pragya.
P is Pragya. Okay, Pragya. Pragya, can you clarify what you did not understand? Which part?
Sir, the thing you said that not all work of art find its translation. What does it mean, sir?
Not all work of art find its translation. What does that mean? Okay, that's one question. Shayon, can you please clarify your question? Shayon?
হ্যালো
Yeah.
হ্যাঁ স্যার আমার মানে প্রজ্ঞা যেটা বলছে ওটাই মানে all art works do not find their translator মানে what does that mean?
Okay, right. So that is the primary question. The second point, right? Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Any other question? Any other question from anybody?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, in the essay, in the second paragraph, what you have told, I understood that uh, according to Benjamin, it's not all about the communication. He says what does it communicates, but then he also talks about something which is about the poetic, and he refers to the poet. What does it mean, sir?
He says that a translator in the second paragraph, right?
Yes, the second paragraph.
Right. Okay, let me clarify that. Progga, please listen to this and please try and understand. If you do not understand, tell me. He says there is a point in the second paragraph where he says that a translator who is translating a poem, in order to translate that poem, he will have to be a poet himself or herself. Because the message in the poem is inconsequential. The message can be translated by anyone, you, me, everybody. Remember, we used to do paraphrases of poems?
Yes, sir.
We used to do we would take the message and we would write it down in another language. That's the message of the poem. But he is saying that message of the poem is inconsequential. What is important in the poem is not the message that is in the poem, but how the message has been delivered. So the content is inconsequential. The form is all important. And in order to, for a translator, in order to maintain the form, please understand the translator will also have to be a poet himself or herself. Otherwise, cannot maintain the form of a poetry, right? So what is being said is of secondary importance. The message is of secondary importance. How it is being said is of primary importance. And how it is being said is all about how language is being used. How language is being used. There is a very interesting phrase, very interesting and oft quoted and oft used phrase that is there in the essay. I have not mentioned it till now, that Benjamin uses over and over again. He calls it, quote unquote, intended effect upon the language.
Okay.
So what is important is what is the effect upon the language that the original has, and the translation must find an echo to that, not to the meaning, not to the content, but the effect of language that is there in the original should find an echo in the translation. That is what Benjamin is trying to say. Is that clearer?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Is that
it's clear. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
okay? Now about the second point, when I said that not every text would find a translator. Once again, Benjamin believes literary texts are living things. They find their own translator. Not every text would find their translator because of two reasons. Benjamin specifies them in the essay. This is, I think, the fourth paragraph in the essay. And Benjamin says one, firstly and secondly. Firstly, not all texts would find a translator is because all texts are not worthy of translation. It's as simple as that. Let's say tomorrow I write a novel. Would the translators all around be jumping around? Okay, Anindo Sen has written a novel. Let's translate that. No, my novel has to be worthy of translation, right? Not every literary text, not every work of art that is written is worthy of translation. So, firstly, not all texts would find a translator because not all texts are worthy of translation. Secondly, there is also a possibility that a translator might not be equipped enough, be qualified enough to translate text. That is probably worthy of translation, but a translator cannot be found. This is how Benjamin puts it. This is how Benjamin says it. Among all the readers, will there be a person who is worthy enough to translate this particular text? So maybe the source text is worthy of translation, but among all the people who have read it, will there be someone who is actually qualified enough, worthy enough to attempt a translation of that text? That is why not all texts find translation. Number one, because all texts are not worthy of translation. Number two, everyone is not a translator. So a text finding a translator is also happenstance. A worthy translator, that is what I mean. Not everybody, people can translate, but it might not be a good translation. Whether a text would find a translator among its readership is also a matter of chance. That is why not all text would find a translator. Any other question?
Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Anybody else? Any other question? Okay, I see no response. Okay, fine. So this is my problem. I have a problem and I do not know the solution. Usually with this particular essay, Walter Benjamin's The Task of the Translator, the essay is long and complex and full of ideas. Usually what I do is I mark out portions from the essay that you need to read, that you must read, and portions that you might leave unread at this point of time. We are concerned about the ideas that I have already talked about, so I mark out those portions, but I do not know how to do that at this point. How can we do that? I usually distribute a
sending
copy.
photographs. Sending photographs.
But I do not have a hard.
Sir, yeah, yes, sir. You can just mark it on your own and send it to us.
Yes, PDF এ mark করে
Original.
sir.
নতুন একটা কপি বানিয়ে
Yeah,
অ্যাক্রোবেটে হয়ে যাবে।
পিডিএফ এ মার্ক করে পাঠিয়ে দেবো,
Yes.
করে দেবো। সেই মার্কিংটা তাহলে মানে পিডিএফ ওই হাইলাইট করে ওইটা দিয়ে তো,
হ্যাঁ স্যার,
Yes.
হাইলাইটার।
হাইলাইটার দিয়ে হাইলাইট করে তোদের সাথে শেয়ার করে দেবো। ঠিক আছে, আইল ডু দ্যাট। ওকে, আইল ডু দ্যাট। ওকে, এনিথিং এলস?
So the problem with this essay is that when I try to I can understand very well what you are saying. I have the lectures and I can understand, but when I try to relate it to the essay, it becomes very difficult for me to understand. It
I
gets
know
mixed up, sir.
it is written in a very complex and complicated
Yes.
manner. I agree. That is Benjamin. Benjamin used to write like that all his life. Everything he has written is equally complex and complicated because he had very weird ideas. So that is why I try to simplify them and make them as digestible as possible. So if Benjamin kind of ever met me, Benjamin would consider me a very bad translator of his essay because I domesticate this. I have domesticated the essay so that it becomes more understandable for you guys. Anyway, okay, so that's it for today. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
sir.
That's the end of the class. Thank you. Thank you.